Welcome to Parents at Work, a podcast for people who want to succeed and thrive at work while they have kids. This podcast is sponsored by the Spiggle law firm, a firm that empowers people who have been wrongfully fired or afraid that they might be. I am Tom Spiggle, and joining me today is my co-host, Lori Mihalich-Levin, an attorney and founder of the online platform Mindful Return. Lori, I will turn it over to you to tell us more about Mindful Return and to introduce our guest today.
Great. Thanks so much, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Mindful Return is a 4-week online course that helps new parents transition back to work after parental leave, and it helps employers to retain their new parent top talent. On this podcast, as you might know if you've been following along, we try to pick a different industry or sector and have a conversation with moms and with dads in that sector. And this time we're turning to the engineering world. We've already done an interview with some dad engineers, and today we're really happy to have with us 2 amazing moms who are engineers and are here to tell us what it's like to be a mom in the engineering space. First of all, we've got Dhruva Lahon, who's a senior project manager in the Dallas office of Kimley Horn and Associates. She has more than 15 years of experience in a variety of traffic and transportation projects, including traffic operations, safety, planning, and design. She primarily serves public sector clients, including the Texas Department of Transportation and municipalities. Dhruva lives in Dallas with her husband and her 2 children who are 7 and 2. Welcome to the podcast, Dhruva.
Thank you, Lori. Good to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. And Victoria Hills is also joining us today. Victoria is originally from Flint, Michigan, and she's currently a program manager at alarm.com. And she's an MBA candidate at Rice University in Houston, Texas. As a mother to a dynamic 4-year-old, she's prided herself on setting an example of achieving your dreams despite the obstacles in life. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree in mechanical engineering. She's actively involved in organizations such as the National Society of Black Engineers, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, and Black Girls Code. And she dedicates her weekends to running, attending gymnastics and swim classes, and supporting her daughter and cooking. So the first thing I want to say is just to pause and honor the fact that among us, Victoria, Dhruva, Tom, and myself, we have 9 children. And it's the middle of a work day, in the middle of COVID, and the middle of a school day as well. So I just wanted to honor the fact that somehow the 4 of us managed to get on the phone together with all the chaos that comes with 9 children in the background. So thank you for being able to do that today. I'd like to start off first by asking Dhruva and Victoria, each of you respectively, to tell us a little bit about your working parent story. So Dhruva, if you wouldn't mind, let's start with you.
Thank you, Lori, and glad to be here again on this podcast. Working parent-wise, I had my first child in 2013, and that was definitely a life-changing event for me. So I was very used to getting to work early, coming home late, and just working through and powering through each and every day. But once I had my first child, I realized I had to take a step back and get adjusted to the new normal. I started making use of flexible hours that my company, Kimley Horn and Associates, offered. Gratefully, I was able to adjust my hours and work so that I was able to serve my clients and work with my team, while at the same time trying to balance my family life. Then again, in 2018, about 2 years ago, I had my second child. So that added another dimension to it. Felt like it was 1 + 1 was definitely more than 2.
We say 85 in our house. Yes. 1 + 1 is 85. I get it.
I think you're right. It is 85. So I started doing more flexible hours. So I would drop off the kids at 7:30, get to work, and then leave so that I could pick them up by 5 o'clock, get them fed and give them their bath and bedtime. And then I would work again at night. So that's what I did. Both my kids used to go to daycare. We actually researched the daycare quite a bit even before they were born, so that we felt comfortable with the care providers. And we found a nice daycare near our house at a church. So really friendly people, and we've stuck with them for so long. And then also, I got a lot of help, not only from my parents and in-laws who are actually they live in India, but we brought them in to take care of the kids and spend time with their grandkids. So it was really helpful for us to have that safety net whenever they could come here and spend time. And then when they were gone is when our safety net was kind of gone because we didn't have family nearby. And then it was really tough, I would say, taking it one day at a time and trying to have a plan B for any emergencies or any sick kids or anything. But with two working parents, my husband also works full time. It's been a constant coordination of schedules, who has meetings, who has calls, and pre-COVID, who had travel plans and so forth. It's very dynamic, I would say, being a working parent. So yeah, that's what I would say about my working parent story.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dhruva. Yes, I totally relate to that constant coordination of schedules. It's not like you said it once for the week and it's done. And you also so beautifully highlight the importance of that village. And I think that's one thing that's been really hard and missing in COVID is how our village has been denied us and stripped away on so many levels that makes it so much more challenging. Victoria, I'd like to turn it over to you and ask you the same question. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal working parent story?
Yeah, of course. And again, thank you, Lori, and for having us both here. And similar to Dhruva, I really stress the importance of the fact that you need a village to raise a child. And so when I had my daughter in London, it was back in 2016, and I was actually in the middle of a rotational program at Ford Motor Company. Mm-hmm. And so to take off for 8 weeks was a bit of a challenge. And then to come back to it and try to, start back going was extremely difficult. And it was actually one of the most difficult times of my life because I was entering a new career in manufacturing and now having a child and still having to somehow get my bearings in a row to be functional every day. And you all know with kids, you're sleep deprived, you're all over the place, you're trying to coordinate your own schedule. And so for me, that was like my first reality check. And it was interesting that I found the most rewarding part of going through that difficult experience was being more connected to other moms. Because being so young at 26, I didn't really understand what the dynamic was, supposed to look like. And so when I started back work after I had my daughter, I literally had to lean in on all the women around me to help me navigate in this new manufacturing space and being a mom. And so I really leveraged having mentors. We had a women's circle at Ford Motor Company, and they allowed me to just get advice. I learned where all the different rooms were at work, and it just allowed me to feel more comfortable in that role. And then fast forwarding to now, like being a program manager, it has been one of the most interesting experiences because when I first had London, I was working under someone. And going from working for someone to now being a leader and a manager of 36 people, it makes your ability to have to perform a lot higher. And so like having to spend more time at work, I had to really leverage my friends and my family members to like almost pseudo take care of my daughter while I was working super long hours. And I feel like, again, just kind of reiterating the fact that it takes a village to really raise a child. When you go from being the understudy to being the lead of a team, it takes a lot out of you, but you still have to have that energy. So for me, it's been this constant, what I would call balancing of scales between being a mom and being a parent and also being present because kids see when you're on your phone, when you're on your tablet. My daughter has been able to kind of give me a reality check or a gut punch at times, like, Mommy, you're on your phone. Like, can you come back and play with me? So the dynamic has been interesting, I would say, from going from a rotational program student to being a manager now, because I've had to be very intentional about spending that time with my daughter and also being more comfortable with leaning into my circle and allowing those people to help me out.
That's amazing. Our children are quite good at informing us when they need us to get off of our devices, aren't they?
Definitely.
Pretty vocal about that. Yeah. Tom knows that this is one of the things I feel really passionate about, but I often talk about the fact that parenthood really provides us with amazing leadership training. And so I'm certain that the skills that you have gained through parenthood over the past couple of years have really helped you in that progression to manager and being able to lead a team. So I am always excited to hear when working parents become leaders because I know that they've got a lot of experience in all sorts of things from managing challenging situations with people who can't express their needs clearly and all sorts of stuff that's directly translatable to the job. Victoria, I want to ask you our next question, and then I want to follow up with Dhruva as well. How would you describe what it's like to be a parent engineer specifically these days? I don't know if it's possible to make any generalizations, but is there anything specific to the engineering world that you would like to reflect on with respect to working parenthood?
Yeah, engineering, I've been an engineer now for 7 years. I think it's one of those bittersweet things. Being an engineering mom is something that's very lonely. Being a woman who's an engineer is even lonelier because I've read a lot of statistics, and one of the most glaring ones that come to mind is there was a study done by UC Riverside, University of California, Riverside. They looked at the fact that at all the 500 or Fortune 500 companies, only 14% of the engineers are women. That's a small percentage.
14%.
14% are women.
All engineers, like all levels.
All levels.
Wow.
14% are women. And so to me, it's very real because when I go into my job, there's only 2 women who are engineers. That's it. So the numbers weren't surprising, but it was just like, it further reaffirmed that it makes it a very lonely space for being a woman in engineering, which is why I do so much personally to try to, get out there and show young girls that they can become engineers in the future so that number can increase. But besides it being lonely, it's very busy because you constantly have the light on you when you're a woman. So you have to balance the scales between, okay, yes, I can be assertive just like the guys, but I also have to have this soft side as well. Yeah. So you have to really have a balance. And then of course, now we're in COVID. It's making it even more difficult because now you're wearing all these different hats. You're a mom, you're a manager, you're the teacher, you're the janitor, like you're all these different things. So pre-COVID, there were a few hats that being an engineering mom looked like, and now you have all these additional responsibilities.
Oh my. And I think I read in your bio, which I said out loud, that you're also an MBA candidate right now. So you're also a student.
Wow. So student.
Oh my goodness. That's really amazing, Victoria. I also just want to highlight, in your bio, you wrote that you're part of the National Society of Black Engineers. I could imagine, sort of raising the intersectionality issue here, that it's even lonelier being a Black woman mom engineer, to stack that on top of all of those things.
Right.
So yeah, kudos to you for all the community building that you're doing as well. That's amazing. Over to you, Dhruva. How would you describe what it's like to be a parent engineer these days?
Yeah, so similar to what Victoria said, engineering is a male-dominated industry. So when I first started my career, I hardly saw senior women who were also working and had kids. But gradually, as years went by, I was starting to see more. And actually, at the same time that I had my kids, many of my other women colleagues had kids. So it was a good support system to have, just to share that they were going through similar experiences. But before I had kids, I remember I could not relate to what it meant to be a working parent, especially a working mom, and how much more hats you have to wear to be able to have a work-life balance. In some days, there is a balance. Some days one pulls you more than the other. But yeah, it's definitely challenging, like any other industry, to be a working parent. But our industry, especially on the civil engineering side and my firm, are very adapted technology, and we have adopted laptops, video calls very well. So that has kind of attributed to the flexibility, being able to be productive even if you're not at the office at the moment. I think that has attributed to some of the positive experiences. So speaking of COVID, I think similar to what Victoria said, that has definitely made it tougher to juggle and have a delineation between work and life. And I will admit that the only way I'm able to do it is be more lenient on screen time and toys and candy and other things that I was not as lenient pre-COVID. But yeah, I think there's always a fine balance to be created and achieved as a working parent in this industry these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all relate to those areas where we're just like, well, throw that out the window because it's COVID and we're just trying to survive and get one day to the next. Absolutely. I'm like, whatever will motivate the children pretty much and get us to the next day. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Tom for our next question.
Yes. Thanks so much to all of you. I think it's so important what both of you are doing because, as Lori will certainly attest to, one thing that we hear so often on this podcast is what makes a difference in the working environment to working parents is somebody in management who understands them. almost more important, or at least equally important as progressive firm policies, is having a manager who gets it, whether they have kids or not, and is sympathetic to the real challenges that working parents have. So I think it's so important that you are both serving in this role. And, it sounds like engineering was where law was probably 10, maybe 15 years ago. I mean, Lori, you can certainly speak to this, but there just weren't that many female partners to begin with, and very few female partners are in leadership positions with kids. I mean, that's changing.
Yeah.
Just
in terms of numbers, and to offer a point of reference, I think nationally female partners are, I believe, at 21% roughly. So marginally better than the 14% that is the total number of engineers.
Right, 14.
Yeah, but one of the reason that I asked the follow-up question was, if you look across, like, the people coming out of law school and joining the legal profession and joining firms are half women. And so you look at the numbers, and like half the associates who start off in law firms are women, but then as you go up the ranks, it levels off and down to 21%. So I think both fields have a ways to go, but it sounds like, Tom, as you were reflecting, engineering might be even just a little behind the law.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I thought we were better than that, but I guess not. I guess not. There is one difference. I think, as you both mentioned, just the low number of women generally. I don't know if it's certainly not a feather in the cap of law, but if you go to a law firm, you will see a lot of female associates. Of course, many of them will end up leaving, often because of unfriendly childcare policies, or at least that's been the history of it. But like I remember when my wife, at least there were other women with her. When she was pregnant as in a private law firm. But anyway, regardless, I think it's so important for the both of you just being who you are for other women coming up behind you. And let me just echo how unexpectedly hard it is to go from, as a professional, or probably in any environment, to go from having no children to having children. I've told this story before, but it's one of my few good ones, so I'll just tell it again. Give a lawyer a microphone is a dangerous thing. But I remember, when I was clerking, out of law school, I didn't have kids. I'd get up, my wife and I would get up super early in the morning. I mean, she was at a law firm, and we'd commute into the city, and I would get to work at like 7:30 and loved it. I loved getting to work early, and it was so quiet. And the judge who I worked for, who's just been a great mentor to me, but he would come in probably 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I remember thinking, wow, it must be, once you get up there and you're a judge, you can come in later. But of course, at the time, he had a 5-year-old, I believe, and then 2 twins. So he was, I had no idea, right? Like what it took him to get to work even by 8:30. And I think it's sort of, unless you've lived it, it's really sort of hard to appreciate. And also, again, going from 1 to 2, I will say, we've got 4 kids, and the hardest transition for me, even harder from going from 0 to 1, was going from 1 to 2. And I remember being just shocked by it, because after having 1, I thought, okay, this will be work, but I sort of know what I'm doing. No, like you're right. There's a synergistic effect when you add that second child that's just not accounted for. But anyway, I'm glad we are, misery loves company here. So, Deborah, I'm going to start with you and ask you, what workplace supports did you find particularly helpful as you became a working parent?
Sure. Yeah. So my firm, Lahon and Associates, has several benefits they started offering actually about 7 to 8 years ago. So which is around the time I had my first kid. So it actually worked out for me, and I'm grateful. The first one that tops the list is flexible hours. Being able to work from home, especially at night, I think that actually helped me quite a bit in making sure that I was still able to work full time while having the kids at home. I know many other women have made use of the flexible hours and very appreciative of it. Some other benefits that our company has offered to working parents are alternate schedules. So I've heard of some women who work from home on Mondays or Fridays. Some go on reduced schedule, which would be like part-time, half-time, while still working, so that they keep having that work experience at the same time. Our company also offers backup childcare. If the primary childcare provider, let's say the nanny calls in sick, or the child can't go to daycare because of being sick, then our company actually provides backup childcare through one of the providers where a nanny could come into the house and it's actually financially subsidized as well. So that has proved very beneficial. And I talked about the safety net. So this is the safety net that our firm has provided us that we make good use of for sure, especially in the winter season.
Wow, those are some fantastic supports. Well, then I would be glad if this question is difficult for you. But the next question is, what supports did you not have when you became a working parent that you think it would be helpful to have for people coming up behind you?
Personally, as I said, my family was not close by. I think that would be a great one for people to think about as they start to plan on having kids, is to have family close by. And then the other one that I've heard some of my friends, especially those in tech, say great things about is childcare at the office building or in close vicinity of the office, so that they can visit them, or they did not go out of the way to drop off the child. When they come to work, they drop off and they go back, or maybe they can visit the kids during lunchtime or breaks. I think the childcare at the office building type facilities will be great for other parents to benefit from.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I know there's some employers in the DC area. I remember the Department of Labor, I think, well, now no, everybody's at home, but before COVID, I think they were like an early adopter, even 10, 15 years ago had on-site daycare. And I remember, our colleague, a friend who is an attorney there, and how important that was to her just to be able to pop downstairs and see your child. So I think that's a great one. And I agree, my wife and I neither of our parents are they're not geographically close to us. And I think that's a great point, for those who, all things being equal, and, it's not often not true because people have, got their career geographically located, but all things being equal, if you're thinking about kids and you think about being closer to family, it does make a huge difference. And it's something we wished we had had, as our kids have grown up. All right, Victoria, let me switch it back over to you and ask the same question. And I'll ask you to answer this both. We get a twofer for you. Answer it both as, being in a non-management position, and then as you are now in a management position. And that is, what workplace supports did you or do you have that you find particularly helpful being a working parent?
In terms of before I became a manager, when I was in my rotational program, I think one of the most beneficial supports, similar to Dhruva, having the flexible work hours, I think were extremely helpful, because I could work when my daughter was sleeping, and then I can, work as early as I wanted to from home, or, work as late as I need to as well. Since some of my clients were in the UK and Australia. And the other thing I think I really, like I mentioned before, I really utilized our mentoring circles. Because again, being a young mom, I had no idea what I was doing. So having people to talk to, and it was an all women's mentoring circle as well. It was really beneficial to be able to talk to other women, get their perspective, and really understand, is what I'm experiencing unique to me? Because I'm sleep deprived and I'm forgetting everything. Is this a me problem, or is everyone going through this? So it was nice to be able to just talk to everyone about that in a nice, confidential and safe space. And that's where I met my mentor. Now she's my mentor of the last 5 years. I met her because I was experiencing some of the hardest times of my life, going from not having a child at early 20s to having a child. And it was difficult. My work performance was going downhill, and I was just I don't know what to do. I think it's me, but I don't know. And so having that group of women to really lean in on and help me was really beneficial. On the flip side, being a manager now, so I still have the same support of having mentors, but now that my daughter's older, having what's called a parent affinity group. So basically an affinity group with multiple parents, to be able to not only have, people to talk to, but for other kids for my daughter to play with. So,
yeah.
I was very privileged to have a situation where my daycare was connected to my job. And so it was really nice when, if I had to work late at night, I had parents I could actually trust to pick up my daughter and just go to their house and they just play. And I had that network from that parent affinity group. Being a manager, because I didn't have the flexibility to have to, I couldn't just work at home. I had to physically be present for a lot of meetings that were with clients that were in other locations. So having that parent affinity group really helped me out in the second phase of my life, to be able to have people to leverage. And again, being a single mom, it's a very different dynamic. You have to have people you can trust with your child. And this group provided that for me.
Yeah, no, that's, this is music to Lori's ears. So Lori, do you want to say, this is kind of your bailiwick.
I'll
you want
do
to
my plug.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm sort of a serial founder of parent-related affinity groups, Victoria. And last summer, I put together a group called the Working Parent Group Network, or WPGN, which is basically an email list, and it's a community where we have a call every 2 to 3 months of the leaders of working parent affinity groups and ERGs all over the country in different industries. So if anyone who's listening to this, including Victoria, wants to join our group, all you have to do is go to www.mindfulreturn.com/WPGN and fill out the little form about your name and email and what company you are working with. And I will get you connected to that group. I realized in forming a parent affinity group that I was recreating some wheels and was at times looking for ideas as to how we could run the group better. And so it's nice to have a community to support you in that. And I am, like 3 cheers for parent affinity groups. They're a huge lifesaver and community builder for people. I really had never thought of using that group for childcare purposes, but I love that example, Victoria, too.
Yeah, really talk about having community. That's really such a special thing. And Lori, I just want to add a plug too, because I know you work with men too. I mean, this is not just a issue for mom.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, the Mindful Return program that I run, there's a version for moms and a version for dads. But one of the big things with respect to affinity groups that I'm a fan of is, for example, when you're launching a parent affinity group, really to launch it with a mom and a dad leader. I think personally, it's very important to degender and destigmatize the whole caregiving and parenting thing. And I do appreciate my mom related close friendships. And I think in the workplace, it can really help to have a place where all parents can come together. In the affinity group that I founded at my law firm, there were some dads who attended events early on who said, oh my gosh, this is the only place I have to talk about this stuff. I don't have a mom's group anywhere to go to. So I think to the extent you can make it a gender neutral parent affinity group or parent ERG, that can be really helpful too.
From my own experience, not having that, and I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, very supportive of the needs of working parents. So, I mean, certainly was allowed to take paternity leave. But it was back, this was 2003 when we had 2005, we had our first kid. It just, for men in particular, the idea was, you should be involved with your kids, but you should automatically know how to do that. It's just they come pre-programmed, and so do you. So when you're at work, and there was some wisdom, people would stop by my office and we'd talk a little bit, but it was other than it gets hard sometimes. There really wasn't a support group. So as a man, I think that's also very important, just because sometimes we all deal with our stigmas, but I think men in particular are oh, okay, and this is changing somewhat, but it's still, this is the mothers that they deal with this, and you're a little bit sleep deprived, but otherwise you should be okay. And that's not always true. So, put my plug in for men getting involved as well. All right, Victoria, the second part of this is, what supports did you not have that you think would be helpful to women or men coming up behind you?
Yeah, I think in terms of support, the one thing that comes to mind is maternity leave, and how at most companies, they still have not extended the amount of time that parents, mainly men, women, we only get at most 8 weeks, and men get 2 for paternity leave. And so I think for me, having the support of my company to be able to say, we support you to stay away on maternity leave for 12 weeks or 14 weeks, that's extremely beneficial. So going from Ford, I only had 8 weeks. And one of my attraction points when I went to alarm.com was that they offered 14 weeks of maternity leave, because 8 weeks with that's literally that's 2 months, not even 2 months really.
Crazy.
That's a newborn going to daycare. So you have that separation anxiety, and you have to be a functioning employee. So I think in terms of support, one of the supports I didn't have was that I wish my company would have provided a longer time of maternity leave. It provided the resources similar to Dhruva. We had the in-home care that was subsidized, but having the ability to bond in the beginning, I think, is so beneficial with your child, especially when you're a first-time parent, because that experience is totally brand new. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's going to happen. And most companies are forcing employees to have to go right back to work as soon as they have their child.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, it really is. Anybody who's had a child, like to go back after, and a lot of people are faced, they have to, they don't have a choice, but to go back after 8 weeks, like you're just beginning, if it was, you're just beginning to recover physically, not to mention emotionally. And my wife we were lucky that, she banked leave. So this wasn't, certainly wasn't, anyway, but she banked leave, but she took 6 months with each child. And that really, that's about what we needed, things being on something of an even keel for her to go back. So, and I know the people that we've had on the show, everyone who's pretty much that I can recall, who's been in a state that has, more generous leave than what's under the FMLA has commented on that, about how important that is. So that's certainly consistent with what we're hearing. Okay, Lori, I will throw it back over to you.
I also love, Victoria, that you basically said that the paid parental leave was a recruiting tool. I mean, it's what distinguishes one company from another in many instances. So I think employers need to keep that in mind if they want to attract the top talent of people who are in their childbearing years. Victoria, let's stick with you for a moment. If you can sort of zoom out and think about the engineering field more broadly, what sort of changes do you see happening in engineering that are affecting working parents?
Again, we're in COVID. We're in the pandemic right now. That's the number one change overall, right? No matter what industry you're in, COVID's impacting everyone. When I think about the tech industry, though, a lot of changes are happening with artificial intelligence. A lot of the tech companies are trying to learn as much about their customers as possible. They want to be able to predict everything about what their customers are going to do. And so as a parent, I think that it's important now more than ever to be very in tune with what your children are doing and what they're looking at, what they have access to, because tech companies are trying to learn as much about you so they can target, not in a bad way, but they're trying to target and develop artificial intelligence around understanding predictable factors about customers. So I think that in terms of tech industry, the AI movement and ensuring that customers are more sticky with products, that can be a good and a bad thing. And again, for children, I look at it in more of a negative light because children are so impressionable, and depending on what gets, rolled out to them, it can impact how they are as adults when they mature and get older. So
absolutely.
Things that are impacting the industry.
And a lot to be terrified as a parent, right? Just concrete example, my kids persuaded me to allow them to start playing Sim City, right? Where you build the cities. And in whatever the most recent version, 2014 of Sim City is, there's a feature where you can be shown advertisements to be given money in the game to play with. And so, we had to sort of make the family rule. And I've heard that some of the advertisements are just not appropriate for boys who are 7 and 9, right? They're just too old. And so we had to make the family rule that you're not allowed to click on the ads to get the more points or the more bonus money or whatever. And my kids are like, but why? We watch ads all the time. I'm like, exactly. It's about drawing some of those boundaries, but it's really super hard to enforce. But great point there. Moving on to you, Dhruva. How about you? What changes do you see happening in the engineering field that are affecting working parents right now?
I'm seeing an increased realization of being inclusive of working parents. So when I go to professional meetings these days, I see a lot of presentations on work-life balance, about retaining working parents, especially moms, as well as women's leadership type topics. So that's very optimistic and very beneficial for all working parents. But I think there's definitely a realization that especially in the engineering community, there is a need for a stronger support for working parents. In fact, in our company, I was introduced to Lori's Mindful Return as I was getting ready to go on my second maternity leave. And I was so glad that I took your course, Lori. It made me so intentional about how do I plan my return to work that, I wish I had taken that course with my first maternity leave and I would have been far more ahead. But really thankful for your course that I took. It's actually offered to all moms now at my company. So being more progressive thinking like that definitely has a lot of benefits to all working moms. Also, I'm seeing a lot more career development workshops that are targeted towards working parents. In fact, even in our company, we have similar workshops. We have women's leadership groups, as well as things like Mom Buddy. For example, I'm a mom buddy to another colleague of mine who had her second child. And just providing that support, I think, is very beneficial, as we talked about earlier. I had not heard about these like a decade ago, but now I see an increased realization that providing this support and network is very important for our profession.
I love that. Thank you so much for the kind words about Mindful Return. It was great to have you in the program. It's reassuring to see that the efforts are multiplying nationwide and probably globally at recognizing working parents. Yeah, I'm seeing that too, even at conferences where there's a recognition that people need to pump, and there are pump rooms and signs to the pump rooms and things like that, which is really heartwarming. I also would note that in this working parent group network that I run, about, I don't know, maybe 130 people in the group. And I would say a good third of them are with companies where the working parent group at their company or their organization literally just started within the past 6 months or is about to kick off. And so I feel like there's this groundswell, especially during COVID, of recognizing that there really is a need to build community and there is a need to help working parents right now. So it's heartwarming, to say the least. Back over to you, Tom, for some of our final questions.
Very good. All right, Victoria, I will start with you and ask you if you had to pick one piece of advice for navigating life for a new working parent, what would it be?
Oh, just one?
You got a top one.
Okay. As a working parent, I would say getting connected, because that is how you're going to be able to participate in some of these amazing initiatives that companies have to offer. If you go on this journey by yourself or just with your partner, it's going to be extremely difficult to kind of navigate what work is like at your company. So I would say getting connected, networking with other parents at your company, to really understand, like, how do you progress your career at this time of your life, but also how do you enjoy it, right? Like, you want to be able to enjoy this experience. And there are individuals who've been where we are today, who have kids who are much older than, our kids are. And so I feel like the number one thing that you can do, the best advice I can give, is just to get connected with affinity groups, get connected with other moms and dads, and really leverage having a village to help raise your child.
No, I think that's excellent advice. So a follow-on to that, do you have a favorite book or article or something that you've read that really impacted how you think about your life as a working parent?
No book or article in particular comes to mind about it. It's really just, for me, it's having those conversations. It's having the conversations with individuals who are parents to be able to leverage yourself as a parent. I think a lot of what I've done personally was to be, for lack of a better word, real with myself and understand what my weaknesses and strengths are as a person. And obviously you can do a Myers-Briggs test, you can do any test to understand what your personal style is, so that when you notice that you're falling off of what are presumed to be your strengths, you can try to reevaluate yourself and kind of keep it moving and kind of keep yourself motivated, and know that, even though you're going through a difficult time, kind of navigating this new space, you also have the ability to know what your strengths are and get back on track with navigating your strengths.
Great advice too. Is there a piece of technology, an app, a computer program that you really rely on to manage your life as a working parent?
Yes.
All right, let's hear it.
I think I am so attached at the hip to my calendar feature. I have my calendar feature for Google Calendar. Literally, it's synced on my tablet, my computer, my phone, because I don't want to miss any of life's events. And I say that because, like, having a daughter, she has classes, gymnastics, she has like mommy cookie dates, all these different things that I don't want to miss with my busy schedule. And I also know that I have to support my team. And so having a calendar has really provided an avenue for me to be able to be present in all these situations, but also organized as well. So I think I would say my number one thing is my Microsoft Surface that I use, that has my Google Calendar. I can change things on the fly, and I'm able to be present for all of life's major events, whether it's for work or it's in my personal life.
Yeah, calendar is the big winner for that answer, which is, I think, crucial for a lot of us. It's an important skill to have to be able to manage it. All right, Dhruva, back to you. What is your number one piece of advice for navigating life as a working parent?
Sure. So my biggest piece of advice was taking it one day at a time and remembering that everything shall pass, even tough times will pass. For example, I clearly remember one day when I had a big presentation in the morning. So at 7:00, I was hurrying up to get the kids dropped off and get on my work. And my son actually just threw up all over the floor in the kitchen. And at that time, I took a deep breath and cleaned him up, cleaned everything, and gave him some water. Apparently, it wasn't a major sickness or anything. So I was able to drop him off and get back to work. But it was just juggling those difficult times and knowing that, we can overcome it. I think that's very inspirational.
No, agreed. So what about, is there a book or an article or something that really impacted you, how you think about yourself as a working parent?
I actually was very much impacted by Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book. So the timing of it was perfect because I just had the first child then. And she wrote in the book in length about balancing work and life, powering through it and getting help from partners and everything. So it was just knowing that a successful woman like her went through similar things and how she navigated it and how even I, as at that time, an emerging professional could succeed in my career. That was very empowering for me.
Yeah, it was really a groundbreaking book. And then the final question is also to you, is there a piece of technology that you rely on heavily for your life as a working parent?
So similar to Victoria, I think calendar tops my list, followed by Excel spreadsheets of what needs to be done and getting it organized so that I can keep track of what I need to do and so forth. And then I do use a few apps, especially childcare based, that keep me updated on what's going on at the daycare, as well as what's going on at the childcare provider, after school provider. I think technology is my biggest friend right now, and I mentioned earlier about having flexibility to work from home. So very close to my laptop and phone at night, my laptop's my best friend, and get on it and try to wrap up my day.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Dhruva and Victoria, on behalf of me anyway, because I'm going to be signing off, thank you so much for joining. And I will pass it over to you, Lori.
Great. Thank you. Yes, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Dhruva and Victoria, for sharing your insights and your experiences and your parenting struggles with us. We really, really appreciate it. If you're listening and you know a mom who is an engineer, please forward the podcast onto her so that she can be reassured and comforted by their wisdom and words as well. If you know any dad engineers, feel free to forward both this and the dad version of the Parents at Work engineer-related podcast onto them. Stay tuned as we choose another industry or sector to focus on next. And if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd encourage you to go ahead and rate and review the podcast over on all the normal places where one finds podcasts. Thanks again for joining us, and good luck with your own working parent struggles and challenges.
Thank you, everyone. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Thanks for being on.
Bye-bye.